All right. Welcome back. This is the Under the Fatherhood podcast. My name is Chris, and I have my co-host here, Blair. On this podcast, we talk about, review, give our opinion on comic books, movies, and all of that content. And in episode 1 here, we are going to start with the Man of Steel movie. We're going to do a deep dive into the DC Extended Universe in anticipation of the Snyder Cut Justice League getting released here in a couple weeks. I know Blair's excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to start here with Man of Steel, one of Blair's favorite movies. So I know he's excited to get into this.
Yes, the best comic book movie ever created is Man of Steel, my boy Zack Snyder. It is the best comic. All you people out there that are going to say the Dark Knight, get out of here. It blows the Dark Knight out of the water. The only reason the Dark Knight is good is because Heath Ledger is in it and his portrayal of Joker, because if Heath Ledger wasn't in that movie, people wouldn't like it as much. Man of Steel is the best comic book movie. It's the best representation of a character in a movie that I've ever seen. And it is the sole reason that I started reading Superman comic books. Chris over here does not like it. And Chris, I'm going to give the floor to you. Before I go on a tangent about how much I love it, I'm going to let you, the Superman fan, let everybody know why you dislike it. Go ahead.
All right, so I just want to get this out there. This is where you're going to see our two different styles and backgrounds of comics. I don't dislike the movie. I didn't think that it was a bad movie. To me, it's not a Superman movie. I grew up, and this is, again, thanks to my Uncle Richie. You see the Superman plaque that I have back there. That's the Superman that I grew up on. I grew up on the wholesome Boy Scout from Smallville. Later on in our podcasts, I know Blair's not going to like this, but we are going to review Smallville at some point because it was, in my opinion, the best representation of Superman in any media in my lifetime. Tom Welling spent 10 years to put on the suit, and he did Superman justice in every sense of the word. So, that's what I grew up on. I grew up on, the Superman that's always doing, right, no matter what the consequences are. The Superman that is never going to, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, which we are under the impression that all of you have, would never take a life, no matter what. That's the Superman that I grew up on. So, Man of Steel, Zack Snyder has that way of telling a story that is, I'm not saying that there's no light at the end of the tunnel in Zack Snyder's movies, but that light is pretty dim, especially for a guy that, gets his powers from the sun.
Listen, so to build off what you said, let's start at possibly the most controversial part of the movie. At the end, where Superman, again, spoiler alert, snaps Zod's neck to stop him from killing that family in the train station after their fight. So I understand, coming from somebody who's a traditionalist about Superman, that you would dislike that part about him killing Zod, because as we know, the Silver Age Superman would never take a life, right? He would, every time I talk to you about this, you always tell me Superman would always find a way to stop Zod in that situation, but not take his life. But in that moment, you have to think about the fact that in the movie, Superman has only been Superman for about 2 days. This is like his second day as being Superman. So he does not have that moral compass guiding him that a Superman from Silver Age comics does have, because people think that Superman in that movie should inherently be this symbol of hope and this guiding light in the universe, kind of a messianic figure. But Zack's movies are always rooted in reality. So this Superman movie, yes, it's about a guy who, you know, is from another planet and shoots heat out of his eyes and can fly and has immeasurable strength and all of these things, but it's based in a world that we live in right now where you have to make tough decisions. And this Superman's decision to kill Zod has an overarching reaction, especially in the next movie, which we'll get into later. But it's based in reality. So if you were in that situation and you had only been the Superman for 2 days and you realize you have all these powers and all these strengths, what are you going to do with placed in a situation where you have this guy named Zod who's going to kill this family, not because he's a bad guy, but because he has a jilted way of looking at reality, and he's been built and bred to be this general whose sole purpose in life is to protect the people of Krypton. So his goal is to create another Krypton. Superman is a Kryptonian, but he's an Earthling. So what do you do? What do you do? He spent his whole life on Earth. You have to protect these Earthlings. And mind you, at the risk of rambling, when Zod was about to kill that family, Superman says stop, and Zod says never. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that Zod has already made it clear that he's not going to stop. He's going to continue as long as he's breathing to destroy the Earth to make it Krypton. Superman had no other choice but to kill Zod at that moment. And after he killed him, he fell to his knees and let out an agonizing scream because he knows that he has just killed his last trace to his home planet. And I just don't understand why people who are traditionalists of Superman, like yourself and like Uncle Richie, because I know Uncle Richie had a problem with it too, why you guys wouldn't say, okay, we understand that in the comics, Superman probably wouldn't do this. But in the setting that Zack made the movie in, that is a viable solution to that situation that Superman had every right to do.
So, and here's where I go into, my spiel. Like, we've had this conversation before. The thing that I always go back to, and this is something that Uncle Richie told me when we used to talk about Superman, is a lot of superheroes, they have a dual identity, right? They have a secret identity. Okay. There's Bruce Wayne and then Batman. All right. And that is the Batman hides behind the mask to hide Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. Superman's the exact opposite. Okay. So Kal-El is who he was born. Clark Kent is the persona he created. And Clark Kent is who he grew up as. He grew up on a farm in Smallville, and everything he learned was from his parents in a small town, where they taught him hard work, they taught him morality, they taught him all that. So yeah, I agree. He was only Superman for a couple days in that movie, but he's been Clark Kent his whole life, and Clark Kent would never take a life. And that's where I have the problem with Superman killing, because it's not Superman doing the killing, it's Clark. And Clark was raised better than that in the comics and in everything that I ever read from him. So that's where we differ. Now, do I agree with you that Zod is going to continue in that movie or in this world? Absolutely. But in the comic books that we both have grown up reading, every one of these villains is going to continue. Lex Luthor is going to continue. Doomsday is going to continue. And I think that's definitely something that we're going to review at some point. Death of Superman is one of the highest of the mountaintops when it comes to comic books. That was a comic series that was so well written, and it is peak Superman, where he would give himself up, his life up, to save anyone.
Do you think that instead of killing, what would you, so what should Superman have done in that situation?
I mean, in the comics, there's so many different ways that I feel like he's gone around killing. At that point in time, from what I'm remembering about the movie, Zod's heat vision is coming down towards that family. I mean, he had enough strength to break his neck. Why didn't he have enough strength to pick him up and fly him out of there?
Now, I've heard that argument as well from you. Now, but if you'll remember, during the first part of their fight, Zod wasn't flying. He wasn't in control of his heat vision. But like he said, he's been bred and born to master his surroundings and master his skills. He's a bred fighter. That's the whole reason he was born, is to fight. So he quickly mastered the art of flight, mastered his heat vision, and Zod very well, because he's a better fighter, very well, and has the ability to master his skills better, could have kept himself from being picked up. Or another reason, Superman just might not have thought of that. Superman's, he's not, I won't say he's not a tactician, but okay, yeah, he's been in this hero role for 2 days. He, throughout the whole movie, destroys just about everything.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't really take into account, his surroundings that well, because he really doesn't know not only the extent of his powers, but how fighting another being like himself is going to cause destruction around him. He's not really cognizant of those things. So he might just not have thought in that moment, oh, I can just fly Zod up. But what does he do with him then?
I mean, I can agree with that. I think that at that point, though, it becomes a question of, when is it okay to take a life? And I think that Zack Snyder does a very good job in his movies of, like you said, rooting them in the real world. And I think that this is a real world situation and a real world problem that people face on a daily basis. I mean, when is it okay to take a life? And at that point, you have to question, is it okay to take a life to save another? Is it okay to take a life to save a family member? I mean, there's so many situations that these heroes find themselves in, and they're impossible situations, but it always seemed like every comic I read, Superman was put in an impossible situation and he got out of that situation without killing.
All right. So, okay, let me field this question to you then. So I've read early issues of Action Comics. I'm talking 1 through 5, right? In those early issues, Superman is throwing people over mountains, bad guys, who presumably are going to be killed when they land, right? They don't say it directly in the comics, but you assume that they're going to die.
Yeah.
He does that for basically almost every bad guy he meets. He just throws them somewhere. So in that sense, is it okay? Because people are so, hold those early versions of Superman so near and dear to their hearts because, it's he's kind of the first superhero. You know what I mean? So, I mean, looking back at that history, I mean, how do you feel that iteration of Superman may tie into this version? Was it okay for him to do it then, but not okay for him to do it now? I feel like people forget that Superman did presumably kill bad guys in the past.
I think that the problem with that is, and this is a problem that I think that we're facing now. I think that it was a different time at that point, and I'm not excusing what anyone does or says, but it's very difficult to hold someone to the standard of, say, today from 80 years ago or 90 years ago. There was, everything was different, back then. So do I say it's okay? No, I don't. But I also think that as the hero evolved in the time, that since he's been created, I think that they've found Superman needs to be the Boy Scout. And not that they erased the past or anything like that, but I think that they found that he needs to be the guy to do the right thing no matter what. So I don't know. It's just, I think that we could go on forever talking about that one topic, but I kind of want to move into the next real issue that I have with it, and it kind of ties in together. Superman's been Superman for 2 days at that point, like you said. And in those 2 days, not only did Lois Lane figure out who he was, but he also went through all of these changes. And I mean, it just, in the comics, I think it took, probably 30 years for Lois to figure out that Superman was Clark Kent. And that's my big problem. That's my second big problem. What do you think about that?
Well, okay, I will admit, although I feel that Man of Steel overall is the best comic book movie ever made, I too have a problem with the fact that Lois Lane figured out who Superman was in like 20 minutes. Now, for purposes of accelerating the story along in the movie, I understand it, because Zack had a vision of what he wanted to do throughout his whole 5-movie arc, and Lois Lane being killed was a huge part of that, and was a huge part of why we get the nightmare sequence, why Superman turns bad. Now, Zack doesn't have 10 years to develop that relationship so that Lois can find out down the road. He had to accelerate it. And I think it's, he took a liberty there, and I understand the liberty. Would I have, preferred her to, not be in on the situation and just, think of Clark as Clark and not Superman? Yeah, obviously. But for Zack's story, I feel like he down the line, and if they go past, his version of Justice League and all that, I feel like where he wanted to go with it works with the story. Just Lois Lane not being aware of Clark's identity just didn't make sense for his version of the movie. And I'm okay with that, because I'm okay with alternate versions of our characters in these stories. I'm not okay with alternate versions of the characters, but I'm okay with alternate versions of the stories that they go through. So in that sense, I'm okay with it there. I would have, like I said, I would have liked her not to be aware of his situation, but he made it work. And I know you don't like it. I know you also didn't like the fact that Lois didn't have dark hair. And when we saw the movie, because Chris and I went to go see the movie together back in June of 2003. Okay. So we're in the movie theater. Lois Lane comes on screen. He's like, she's not hot enough. She needs to be hotter. I already don't like her. So Chris had it out for her the whole movie. He was gonna put her down no matter what. But yeah, just to answer your question, yeah, I had a problem with it, but I understand, and he had to do what he had to do to accelerate the story.
And I think the reason I have a big problem with it is because not only is it just in that movie, I feel like it's everything nowadays. People want the payoff immediately, and they don't want to give someone a chance. That's why I think I like Smallville so much. I mean, 10 years for him to put on the suit. Yeah, some people might say that it was too long, it was overdue, it got too long. Blair is one of them. But I'm okay with that, because at the end of that 10 years, when he put that suit on, I was like, it was all worth it, And so, I feel like Snyder got a bad rap after Man of Steel, and I was definitely one of the people that gave him it. I have come around to his movie styles and his creativity and everything. We've had a lot of conversations about this. I have watched the movies a few times. I didn't just, watch it once and drop it. I've given it a chance a few times over the years. And I think that, the big thing that I take away from Snyder is when someone has a vision, and we're getting to see that now with HBO Max, giving him the free range basically to create the Justice League movie that he wanted. When someone has a vision, we got to give them the chance to let that vision come to fruition. For us to, after Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman and Justice League, for us to basically write him off midway through Justice League, it wasn't fair to the guy, and I'm glad that HBO Max is allowing him to finish his vision.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've loved Zach's work. I was like, who in the heck made this piece of work? Because I saw, every time I see Zach's work for the first time, he always just surprises me with something. Whether it be my favorite scene in BVS, which I won't say, but I'm sure everybody who's seen BVS knows exactly what I'm talking about. But the reason I love Man of Steel so much is when I saw Man of Steel and I saw how the visuals, how super speed was depicted, how his flight was depicted, the music, the feel, the real world feel, the grittiness of it. I was mesmerized. I hadn't seen action scenes that blew me away like that since the first time I saw The Matrix. And literally my jaw was on the floor in the theater. I'm getting chills talking about it right now. That movie blew me away. And it goes back to what you said, that Superman always has to be the Boy Scout. That's the reason I didn't like him, is because Superman always does good no matter what. He has no flaws. Superman has no layers. Superman is just this vanilla one trick pony. He's always going to do the right thing. He never says anything wrong. He is the Tom Brady of the superhero world. Never does anything wrong. So when I saw Man of Steel and I saw how Zach depicted him, I immediately was turned around to Superman. I was like, this is the Superman that I want to see. I want to see a guy who has all of these powers, who has all the strength in the world, who can literally control the world if he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed on a Tuesday. And he has to deal with that in a real world situation. He's a real guy with all of these powers and all of these strengths, and he doesn't use them for bad. Why? Why doesn't he take over the world? Why does he help people? What drives him to help people? Not just because he's inherently good, because we all know people in this world are not inherently good. Everybody has a flaw. And I want to see Superman go through flaws the way I would. That is what I was talking. That's what we, bring a point back in the last episode, in episode 0, we were talking about relatability in superheroes. And why we think diversity of story is better than diversity of color. Because I want to see Superman go through relatable situations that I would go through. How would I react if I had these powers? How would the world react to Superman if he had those powers? And that's why I love Zach's vision so much, not just because of the visuals, not just because Hans Zimmer is top tier composer and the feel of that movie is just so heart-wrenching and the action is incredible and nonstop. It's because of the relatability of the movie. If you were a guy who found out that you had all these powers and you were faced with this situation where the world that you lived in was in trouble, how would you react? What would you do? And how would you react to the world reacting to you? And to me, that's what really makes this movie stand above everything else, is because it takes itself so seriously. And again, it just blew me away when I saw it for the first time.
And I can't disagree with you. The only thing that I would say to it is that I think that everything that you disliked about Superman is the reason why I loved him so much growing up, because yes, he was the guy who did the right thing at all times, but think about how hard that is. You know, when you have that strength and you have all those powers, to be able to have the self-control to not do the easy thing, because the easy thing is going to be to just kill a bad guy. The easy thing is going to be to just, use your powers to, be wealthy, to, pay for your family's farm, to do this, to do that. That's the easy thing. And he doesn't do the easy thing. And so I think that him being the Boy Scout, yeah, it might be vanilla. And at the end of the day, you might say that we already know Superman's going to do the right thing, but doing the right thing and being the Boy Scout is the hardest thing in the world. So I think that that's what makes him so interesting to me, and the storytelling and the character so compelling. That's what it is for me.
Okay, so when we first saw the movie together, I understand that you were kind of iffy about it. So what is bringing you around after multiple viewings of the movie? What's making you feel differently toward the movie now?
So without getting too much into it, because we are going to go into the rest of the Snyder vision here pretty soon. We're going to go through each of these movies in a different episode. But truthfully, the thing that turned me around was Henry Cavill in Justice League. That's what turned me around, because the first scene, and this is getting way ahead of ourselves here, but the first scene in Justice League when he's getting videotaped by that kid, that's what turned me around.
Oh, that lip and everything.
It was bad CGI. It was bad, and I'll be the first to admit it. But that's Superman to me. The Superman that will take the time out of the day to go and say a few words to a kid with a camera phone and make a joke and smile, that's Superman. And seeing Henry Cavill and seeing Snyder realize that at the beginning of Justice League made me rethink everything before it. So that's what it was.
That Snyder didn't shoot that.
Well, then Henry Cavill, hats off to you, because you turned me around.
Did I just destroy your whole thought on Man of Steel?
It did. You just ruined it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Snyder did not shoot that scene. So I would like to thank Joss Whedon for bringing Chris around to Man of Steel by shooting that terrible, terrible scene.
That may have been the only good thing he did, but I'm gonna give it to him because that's Superman.
Well, we'll get into that when we review Justice League, and I unfortunately have to watch that theatrical version again. It's took me a while to get that bad taste in my mouth. But anyway, going back to Man of Steel. Now, what about? So you said that scene is the scene that brought you around, and it's kind of getting you to like Man of Steel more.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go back and watch Man of Steel, what are some of the things that you pick out from that movie, or when you first saw it, that you did enjoy in the movie?
I think that one of the biggest things for me in that movie was the relationship, and it was very small. It was a short amount of time that you saw it, but the relationship that Clark had with his dad, that was one of the biggest things that I saw in that movie that reminded me of Superman. And it was funny because it wasn't Superman doing it. It was Clark. And like going back to my original point, the reason I like Superman so much is because of Clark Kent. It's not because of all the powers and the speed and the muscles. It's Clark Kent. It's the boy growing up, getting those values from his dad. And again, that one particular moment was where I saw Superman, because in not saving his father in that moment, he did the hard thing. And that's Superman.
Is that not what he did at the end of the movie by killing Zod?
But the thing is, in that particular moment, he did the hard thing by letting his father die. In the other thing, I feel like he did the hard thing for him by doing the easy thing by killing him.
Okay, I kind of get where you're going there, but going back to Paul Kent in that movie, because I love Kevin Spacey, or not Kevin Spacey, goodness gracious, Kevin Costner's
Absolutely.
portrayal of Paul Kent. I love him in that movie.
Absolutely.
He foreshadows Clark's decision to kill Zod, not only in what he says about, you know, saving the kids on the bus, if he should have just let them die, or the story about the farm.
Yeah.
You know, well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself because that's not in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Maybe yes. But anywho, yeah. We obviously have different takes on this movie. I'm obviously geared toward more the gritty, darker tones. You know, my favorite superhero being Batman, but I'm geared toward more that darker, realistic tone. Chris is more geared toward that optimistic, the light of the world type of superhero. And this is the beauty of things like comics. You can have your idea of Superman. I can have mine.
Yep.
And that is why I think that Zach, you know, he's reached such a large group of people, and people are so, you know, he's so polarizing with this take because he took Superman and flipped it on his head. He's like, I know Superman is this messianic figure. I know he's the light of the world. I know he's this Boy Scout. But what if? And then he made his movie. What if Clark didn't always make the right decision?
Mm-hmm.
What if Clark originally didn't want to use his powers? You know, what if he just wanted to be a normal guy? You know, and how would the world react to finding out about this person?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that we have to give filmmakers the freedom to do that. Filmmakers are able, and they should be allowed, to see characters in a different light and take them through different journeys. You know, Zach had always said he was going to bring Superman around. Superman was going to become that figure. And it's like you said before, people always want an immediate payoff.
Yeah.
You have to give it time to grow. But because Superman is, you know, so beloved as a character, people weren't willing to do that. They're like, no. You took my superhero and you changed him. We don't want that. You know, comic book fans are the constitutionalists of entertainment fans. Yes. They want things how it was intended originally. They don't want you to change anything about the character, especially about the core of the character. And yep. Zach did that. And that is what, you know, that really brought me around to loving not only Zack Snyder's movies and anticipating his universe, but brought me into Superman. And I think that Zach doesn't get enough credit for that with Man of Steel, because not only did he create a movie that's heart-wrenching, but he created a movie that brought non-Superman fans into the realm of being Superman fans. And you can still have, you may not have liked it, but you can, and you know, I say this because I know you, but you can appreciate the fact that that is a cool movie. It may not be the Superman that you love, but you can appreciate the fact that it's a different take on the character, and you can be okay with that because you can go back to your comics and you can get the Superman that you love. And you know, I think that's why a lot of people, including myself, love Zach, because he did something that nobody was willing to do. Nobody before him was willing to say, you know, let's take this character and let's peel back his layers and let's put him in a situation that he's never been before.
I absolutely agree. And, you know, going back to, you know, my take on superheroes, which is mostly, like you said, it's the good guy. You know, I'm a fan of the hero, except when it comes to Red Hood. And that is, you know, that's kind of going to bring us into, you know, closing out this episode. And, you know, in closing out this episode, we're going to talk about the next episode a little bit. Our next episode, we're going to not go right into the next, you know, movie that we're going to review. We are going to go into one of the more recent comic series that we've read. and one of the bigger ones in the DC universe in Batman 3 Jokers.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because how much I love Superman being the hero and the Boy Scout. That's exactly how much I love when Red Hood goes off the cuff and takes out a bad guy. So
yeah,
I think that again though that's why we love these comics so much, because they're so broad in the characters, and there are so many different aspects and so many different ways that these characters have been done over the years. And I think that without spoiling 3 Jokers too much, it brought me back to why I love Red Hood so much.
Yeah, and not to disregard what you said, but I just want to bring up another point about Man of Steel and different takes on the characters. I loved how everything was presented in Krypton. I love how we in the movie Zach spent time in Krypton. All the comic books and all the movies, when it comes to Superman's origin, it's just he's a baby born on Krypton. Jor-El sent him away because the plane was going to blow up. But Zach took the time to make a council. He created a culture for Krypton. He created, wildlife in Krypton. He created a conflict in Krypton. He created this world that you were like, instead of it just being a rock that blew up, it was a world that had culture. It was a world that had, its own identity. And I love that. And I also love how, the explanation for why he chose Earth. The sun is going to be nourishing. And you have Jor-El, speaking during the first flight scene. I could talk for 2 hours about why I love Man of Steel.
That's why we have to almost cut him off. We have to cut him off because this will be
one more thing. Man of Steel is the only comic book movie where I was brought to tears, and I get a lump in my throat every single time I see the sequence of him destroying the world engine. That whole sequence when the first jet flies into the building and Perry and that woman, I forget what her name is, are running, and the building's falling on top of them. And you have this scene and this emotion where Perry's trying to save her and he realizes he can't get her out. And it's just, again, I get chills. And it's just everything about the movie. But yes, in the next episode, we are going to be detailing and reviewing the first issue of the 3 Jokers. I loved that comic series. Again, we've read it already. Yep. So we're going to have to go back and read it, and then we're going to review it. We are also going to start creating more content down the line with, we might do movie watch-alongs with the DCEU. We might expand it to, talking about the Marvel Universe or Marvel comic books. It all depends. But we are also going to expand the content in developing, fun little questions like, if you had to create the Ultimate Justice League, who would you pick and why? So, we are also going to be doing that. We're going to try to be doing a 2 to 3 episode format a week. Again, if, you view this video and you comment and you would like to join the discussion, we check it regularly, or you would like to give us suggestions for topics to review and talk about, we're all ears. We're not doing this for money or fame or anything like that. We're just doing it because we're 2 guys who love comic books and we love discussing comic books with other people. Yep. So yeah, if you watch this video and you see it in your feed or anything like that, give us a thumbs up if you want, and join the discussion, and we can start creating a community.
That's it. We'll see you guys.
We will see all you guys later. This is Under the Fatherhood podcast with Blair and Chris, and we will see you guys next time.
God bless.
God bless.